Hi folks, and welcome to Power Negotiating. Today's session is going to be on establishing control in a negotiation. And the most important thing about establishing control is that you want to have this be so natural that the other party doesn't realize that you've established control. And the best way to do that is by doing one thing, and that is asking questions. And the way that you ask these questions, remember we talked before about open-ended and closed-ended questions, the way that you ask the questions will determine exactly how readily they will be to answering your questions. And what I do before I ask them any questions is I establish who I am. Hi, my name is Reed. I'm a real estate investor, and I don't know exactly if I can help you or not, but I know how to find out. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions? And I'm going to ask you some questions that might be very personal, but here's the reason I'm asking them. In order to know how I can help you, I need to know your situation. Would that be okay? So if I ever ask any question that is too personal, you just tell me, Reed, that's too personal. Is that fine? Great. And then I start with an open-ended question. Tell me a little bit about your situation. And I have them go into detail. And then I steer the conversation back to where I want it to by asking them a closed-ended question to clarify. And as I start asking these open-ended questions to grab a lot of information and the closed-ended questions to clarify, what I'm doing is I'm steering the conversation in the direction that I want it to go. When I get out to meet them, well, when I'm talking to them on the phone, the next thing I'm going to ask is, can you tell me a little bit about the property? I'll let them say three things, and remember before, we let them say three things about the property, then we interrupt with, wow, that sounds like a great house. Why in the world would you want to sell? And let them respond. Hopefully they'll give you an answer. And then I'm going to establish more control by asking if both parties will be there. And whatever time we set up the appointment for, whatever time they suggest, I'm going to say, I can't do it at 4. Can I do it at 4:15? You're going to say, Reed, why in the world would you do that? I'm establishing control, and if they agree to make the change, 4:15, 4:30, 5 o'clock, if they agree to make the change, what I've just done is I've established control over them. When I get out to meet them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the house, I'm going to say ooh and ah, I'm going to ask them to do certain things. Can you turn on the lights for me? I could be standing right by the light switch, but I'll have them turn on the lights. Everything I do is I tell them to do something, they do it. And I'm establishing a pattern of behavior here, so I ask them to do something. Watch this. When I have them sit down, I'll say, why don't you come over here, sit right here, please. And I go ahead and I pat the chair, and as I do that, what happens is they will sit down where I want them to sit down. And then I'll ask them to go ahead, if you could, go ahead and tell me a little bit more about your situation. And everything I do is to establish that I am the consultant, I am the problem solver, and they're the ones with the problem. Now, let's talk about the difference between customer and client. Everybody else they're talking to is saying, would you take this? Would you take that? And they're not giving them a reason for that price. Every time I give somebody an offer, I give them a reason for the offer. But before I do that, I do one more thing. What I will do is I will find out what their situation is, and I'll have them tell me what their problem is before I give them the answer to the problem. Because how can I figure out how to fix their problem if I don't know what it is? So I'm going to be asking a lot of questions, and everything I do is a step toward establishing control. Now, when I get in the house, another thing I do is I'll ask them for a cup of water, or ask them for a cup of tea, or I'll ask them to do something for me. Again, why do I do that? It's just something to establish control over the situation. If they sit down in a chair, let's say it's their favorite chair, I'll say, why don't we go ahead and sit over here? And I'll go ahead and I'll tap the chair and I'll say, why don't you go ahead and sit right here? And I will make them sit in the chair that I deem that would be best for them. Again, I'm taking control of the situation. And I will ask them for things. It might be as simple as a glass of water. Can you go ahead and give me a cup of coffee or tea or whatever? Whatever it is, I'm establishing control. Now, as we're starting the negotiations, one of the things that I will do is I will say, no, I really would like some more information here. Do you happen to have your bag? And they're going to say, what's your bag? Remember when you did the closing on this property, at the title insurance company or the lawyer's office, they sent you this great big old envelope that had all of your documents inside of that. Do you remember that? Do you remember where you put that? That would probably be with your important papers, wouldn't it? Could you go ahead and get those for me, if you have them here? If not, when could you get them? And what I've done is I've asked them to do something, and I've given them a reason for doing it, that I'm going to need to know all the information before I can go ahead and help them. And when I have them do that, again, I'm establishing dominance, I'm establishing control over what their actions will be by telling them how this will help them. So when I finally come around to an offer, what has happened is that they're waiting for me to determine if I can help them. And the price is the least important issue, because I'm going to make them an offer that will meet their needs. Now, they might say they want full price cash, close within 5 days. I can't do that. What I can do, however, is this. And so I am not going to mention the price until last. The next thing I like to do when I'm establishing control is called mirroring. And you're going to say, Reed, what is mirroring? Let's say that they are a fast talker. I'm going to match their pace of talking. So if they're talking loud, I'll go ahead and talk loud. If they're talking fast, I'll go ahead and talk fast. If they're talking slow, I will slow down and talk slow. If they lean in towards me, I'll lean in towards them. And what I want to do is I want to establish the same breathing pattern that they do, and I want to match. If they lean back, I want to lean back. If they lean forward, I want to lean forward. And once I get in rhythm with them, where we're sort of matching the same way that we're breathing, the same way that we're talking, then I will establish control over the way that they breathe and the way that they talk. If they're leaning back, I will lean forward, maintain the same breathing, maintain the same eye contact, maintain everything else, but I'll lean forward and wait for them to lean forward as well. And then once I've done that, I'm going to establish control a little bit more by the tone of voice. If they're speaking loudly, I will go ahead and go from speaking loudly to I will speak softly and use pauses to have them listen to what I'm saying. And once they start following 3 or 4 things that I'm doing, I've established another very subliminal way of establishing control over them. And finally, I ask them, I don't know if I can. But if I can, make an all-cash offer and close quickly, what would be the lowest price you could take? And if they, whatever answer they give me, I'm going to flinch. Is that the best you can do? Really? And once they've done that, they'll probably come back with a number. I'll go ahead and say, so this is the best price you can do for an all-cash offer closing quickly. I didn't say that I would close quickly and pay them cash, but what they heard was that I would. And I then established that as the maximum price I would take, and then I go down from there.